I honestly can't believe I'm about to say this, but Crimson Desert has become one of my favorite games in the past 5 years. It feels strange even saying that because my first few hours with the game were some of the most frustrating I've had in quite some time. A control scheme that felt like I needed four hands, an almost nonsensical main story and quest structure, weird systems that all sort of feel disconnected from one another, all peppered with a number of performance issues on the base PS5. But after 4 or 5 hours, I realized what this game was actually meant to be, and from that point forward, I couldn't put the damn thing down. Now, personally, I didn't fall into the Crimson Desert hype cycle. Truthfully, I really didn't care for the game. I didn't really watch any of the trailers or gameplay clips that they were pumping out because honestly, I knew I was gonna buy the game regardless, simply so that I could cover it on this channel. There was so much hype behind it, it would be dumb for me not to. Once those reviews dropped and the subsequent I told you so crowd showed up, I still decided to go into the game with an open mind. Maybe I would find something here that I like that critics and other gamers just didn't. Well, I've spent about 25 hours in Crimson Desert, and yeah, I cannot put this game down. There are a number of reasons why this game has resonated with me so much, and I'll cover them in this video, but truthfully, the game is not without its faults, and I'll be digging into those as well. To put it simply, few games make me want to explore every bit of the game's map. In fact, now that I think about it, there's only one other game I remember having this enticing sense of discovery that made the feeling of exploration so damn satisfying, and that other game was Elden Ring. And I distinctly remember Elden Ring ruining every other gaming experience for me for the rest of the year. Crimson Desert seems to offer that same feeling. It offers the same rewarding sense of exploration, but more importantly, it offers a world where I can just exist in a way that honestly I don't think any other single player game has ever managed to nail down. It's hard to describe the experience, but there's something so good about traveling on horseback down some path and seeing these stunning vistas in the distance. I don't think I've ever seen a game have such an insane view distance the way Crimson Desert does, and it goes a long way in making the world feel like one cohesive thing. Going off the beaten path is rewarded often. I can't tell you how many times I stumbled onto some abandoned cabin in the woods, or a weird puzzle waiting to be solved, some random event taking place, or even a world boss to take down. Secret doors, hidden treasures, it's all packed into one giant map. It's something that just works for me, but something that other people might refer to as open world slop. I honestly think Crimson Desert has one of the best open worlds in gaming to date. It's the absurd freedom that Pearl Abyss has given its players that complements the entire experience. I've played the game for about 25 hours now, and I know those are rookie numbers compared to some of you guys, but I honestly think maybe about 7 of those hours were spent on the actual main quest. This is of course the same sentiment you'll hear from people who play games like Skyrim for the first time, or really any other large open world RPG where the main quest sort of takes a back seat, and of course it applies to Crimson Desert quite a bit. My main issue with the game to start was that I was simply pushing the main story in the beginning. I really wasn't letting myself have the freedom to go off and explore. I just wanted to focus and finish the game as I go. This ended up creating some friction in my experience because not knowing much about the game at all, I figured all of the core systems would be locked behind the main quest, and for the most part, a lot of them are. But the game opens up for you quite quickly, and once I got to the point where I was more or less forced to explore the open world during the main quest line, I never really looked back. I love coming across these different mining locations and finding diamonds underground or some other rare mineral worth a ton of money. My favorite side activity has been bounty hunting and just clearing out requests from the town boards. It's not just a good way to earn silver, but also often rewards me with new armor or weapons. I've invested my money in the bank with a high risk strategy, losing a quarter of what I've already put in, but hey, you only lose if you sell. The side quests are numerous, and I won't sit here and tell you that they're great or even good. They're mostly average or below average, at least from what I've experienced, but the main purpose behind them being to propel you forward, gaining XP and new gear. I can always take a moment to fish or find myself in a bare knuckle fight, play rock, paper, scissors for some reason, help my camp with upgrades and resources, or just take in these stunning views. For me, it's become the kind of game where I hop on and just do whatever comes my way rather than than focusing on one thing over the other. Also, whatever engine Pearl Abyss used for this game, they better start licensing it to other companies, and maybe we can move away from Unreal Engine 5 for a bit. The game looks amazing. It somehow manages to hold a steady frame rate, and albeit there are some hiccups which I'll touch on later in the video. But with that being said, I genuinely think Crimson Desert's open world is one of the best that gaming has to offer for someone who just wants to explore freely, play without rushing, and just experience all that the game has to offer. The actual atmosphere of this game is interesting. Crimson Desert does have like a distinct identity where it combines two different worlds, the medieval fantasy and the abyss. It's gritty, it's dark in some places, but it also looks really good. You've got these massive cities that feel lived in, taverns with NPCs doing their own thing, large cities where there's people just moving about. Whether that actually changes how the world looks and feels, I don't know how to explain it other than the feeling that the world has weight to it. That's a really weird way to say it. It doesn't feel like a backdrop. It feels like an actual place, and I realize I'm starting to sound a little bit insane. Of course, the game is not all just about exploring and running around. Combat plays a heavy role in the experience, and for the most part, I found the combat experience to be solid. I liked the feeling of taking down 50 bandits one by one, tearing through their camps, and there's something satisfying about the way combat flows once you start to get a handle on it. I think there's enough depth here to keep things entertaining as I continue my playthrough. I've come across all sorts of weapons, each with their own movesets and playstyles. Switching from a greatsword to a polearm changes how you approach a fight. The spacing is different, the timing is different, and the combos are different as well. I also liked how you can attach abilities to the weapons in the form of gears, allowing me to customize my build a little bit. I'm being pretty vague here because honestly, I'm still discovering the ins and outs of all these systems, and when I do drop a full video, I'll be able to speak more in depth. One thing I will say though, the boss fights do deserve a special mention. Some of these encounters are genuinely impressive in terms of scale and spectacle. They're not all winners though. Some of them are what people might consider unbalanced or unfair, but truthfully, I haven't really encountered a single boss who took me more than 10 attempts. I have encountered some really badly designed bosses, but nothing too difficult. However, I'm sure that will change soon enough. Now, I've sung this game a ton of praise, and rightfully so, but there are some downsides as well. Firstly, let's just get it over with, the controls. I'm not sure if the person who came up with the control scheme had 5 or 4 hands, but fiddling with the controls early to turn off my lantern was just quite the experience. As you gain more abilities, the controls become even more difficult, like having to focus by holding 2 buttons down, then letting go of one of those 2 buttons so I can use my Axiom Force to break down a wall. Are you still with me here? That's just one example, but this game makes my brain try to combine a sequence of button presses that I've never considered even doing. I know the complaint about controls will get some pushback in the comments. It is worth mentioning though that as I've continued to play, things have gone smoother, which brings me to my next point. The tutorials and the helpful texts disappear before I can even fully comprehend what they're telling me. There was one particular boss fight where they wanted me to flash my sword to see the boss's weak point, then take flight to actually fight the boss in the air. I ended up having to look up the strategy to defeat this boss because whatever the game told me to do was not only pointless, but it made the fight twice as complicated as it ever needed to be. The game just has so many mechanics to fiddle with that trying to pull off exactly what you intend to do can be quite cumbersome. It has been a pain point for me, but again, it does get easier with time. The game does go with this whole no hand-holding approach for much of its gameplay systems. Figure things out on your own or reference some guide, which is what I've been usually doing. I've never had a problem with this approach. In fact, I love it when games do it, and it's no different here. I can see why some players get put off from this style of game, and yeah, truthfully, it's not for everyone. There is a learning curve, and honestly, even being 25 hours in, there are certain things that are still not clear to me. But I'll save much of my thoughts for my full video on Crimson Desert later this month. I have to mention the quest design and just the overall structure. It's probably one of the worst aspects of the game, if not the worst. Objectives can be confusing. At times, things feel chaotic. There's no real sense to what we're doing outside of rebuilding the Greymanes. Cliff, as a character, speaks maybe 1 or 2 lines per main quest cutscene, and sometimes that line is only 1 word. I feel like he only voiced half the game instead of the full thing because sometimes he doesn't speak at all. There's also more than 1 playable character, which I honestly cannot find a reason to have. I thought this game was only centered around Cliff, but imagine my surprise when I unlocked one of the other playable characters. It doesn't make sense, and I haven't even bothered switching to them once. For all the positives about the world and the exploration, all the things to find and do, there is another half of the game that at times makes no sense at all. Anyway, I need to talk about technical performance on the PS5. I started playing this game on the base PS5. I tried all three modes and had three wildly different experiences. Quality mode was the best experience. It was at a locked 30 frames per second, and somehow it ended up being the best option for me. Balanced mode, believe it or not, was the worst experience of them all. The frame pacing just felt off, frame drops were happening often, and while the resolution looked fine, the experience just felt sluggish for some reason. Which is weird to me because most of the time I go with balanced mode in most games that offer it. Performance mode was 60 frames per second, but an unbelievably blurry mess. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But now hold on to your typing fingers. There has been a patch that apparently has addressed this blurriness, but I can't confirm it because I actually moved onto the PS5 Pro midway through my playthrough. Yeah, once I saw that price hike incoming, I bit the bullet and bought one. I had been considering one for some time, and Crimson Desert felt like the perfect game to upgrade for. The PS5 Pro experience has been nothing short of stunning. I've been playing in the performance mode with 60 frames per second and on a high resolution, and it just feels like a completely new experience. I know performance in general for this game has been a pain point for a number of players and continues to be. I do need to give credit where it's due. Pearl Abyss has been churning out update after updates, addressing some of the more obvious annoyances such as using less stamina when gliding and so on. And I'm sure they'll be pumping out many more updates to address the performance issues. Crimson Desert is a game that has really resonated with me. I came in with zero expectations. The reviews were good, but I don't think they were as good as the hype that surrounded the release. The discourse surrounding the game has been messy and continues to be, and I honestly bought it out of obligation more than excitement. And here I am, 25 hours later, not wanting to put the game down. That doesn't happen often. Sure, the controls are a headache, the main quest feels like an absolute mess, but the world that Pearl Abyss has built here is something that feels worth spending time in. For a certain type of player, and I think most of you watching this channel know if you're that type of player, this game is going to grab you. If you bounced off of it early or don't even have the slight bit of interest, then I get it. I almost felt that way too. I'm going to keep putting time into this game, and I'll have a full video out soon where I can actually speak to the whole package. Thank you guys for watching. As always, consider subscribing.